What is going on, Cyberfam? Excuse the noise, I'm currently getting some work done, so the entire family is sitting right behind me right here. So it's gonna get a little noisy. So today's video is gonna be mainly inspired by a question by Toby Thomas. I'll post his Twitter over here. And I'll post a question up here as well. But a few days ago when I did the IBM partnership video, Toby Thomas asked basically, just curious, why doesn't a big tech just buy Palantir? And Chris replied with a pretty good article. But if you go back into the histories of like the company in general, there's breadcrumbs in this sort of throughout here and there, and most of it is just anecdotal, but this one is pretty solid. Seems that in 2016, Larry Ellison actually had a private meeting with Peter Thiel, and in this private meeting, they were discussing a potential acquisition where Oracle would purchase or buy Palantir outright. And this is kind of interesting, right? Because this is the same year in 2016 when Oracle bought NetSuite, which is a very big ERP product, and it's kind of a competing one, and it's in the crosshairs of things like HyperAuto, and even like just Foundry in general in terms of the modules and things like that, right? So this is interesting. This is interesting, and this is clearly a sign because 2016 was a time when Palantir was not public, which means that I think the acquisition of NetSuite was around $9 billion, and Palantir would have been worth much more. And now big tech always does this, guys. This is not very uncommon to see this. What they basically do is if they have a roadmap or they want to go somewhere in a particular direction, they'll acquire a company that does parts of the thing they want to do, and they'll start like tacking on after acquisition more features and more sort of things that propel them in that direction. They'll use these acquisitions as a vehicle, as like a boat to swim in that direction. This happens a lot. This happens a lot. This is not exactly, this is common practice in Silicon Valley and generally in the tech world. The thing is though, with Palantir, that thankfully that deal didn't fall through, or else I think all of us would have been left out of this giant opportunity that we have here. And of course, these big tech companies want to get into these and acquire these companies prior to them actually going public, because once they go public, the valuation just spike and it's pretty much just impossible to buy. So part of the reason is that they just don't want it to essentially hit the public market, and they want to acquire them while their tech is still budding, but their direction is solid, right? That's usually a game plan. The thing is though, I feel like maybe there was some issue here between Peter Thiel and Larry Ellison. Maybe it was based on valuation. So Peter Thiel understands his company through and through, end to end, right? It's him and Alex Karp's baby, basically. So they're not going to undersell themselves, right? And even if they do oversell themselves, they want to make sure that these kind of initiatives go to somebody who actually is going to take care of it and head in the right direction. You have the choice of doing that when you're at that level. So this thing is kind of big because, like I mentioned to you in that video with where we talked about the competitors, which I'll post up here, but Oracle is very much a competitor of Palantir, not from a traditional sense, right? But they are from a roadmap sense. Like this is where they want to go in the long run. The problem with Oracle in general is that they have lots of legacy clients, lots of legacy software, lots of things that cater to legacy, which means older, like mostly governments and stuff. Okay, and part of why Oracle survives and still surviving is indicative of like a lot of stuff in the tech industry. Okay, let me explain something to you. This is one of the reasons why people don't fully switch to Palantir, for instance, right? People are always like, oh, maybe it's because their product sucks. No. I'll tell you why. The problem is I've mentioned to you before in some of my other videos, right? It takes a long time to onboard the software. So it might take 6 months to a year to onboard software. Now, after you onboard software, you have to work data. Most of the time, nothing really works right out of the box. So once you work all this data, you bring it into your ecosystem, and then it becomes part of basically your company's ethos, right? It takes this long to do all that, and then all of a sudden a company comes out with a better product, you're just going to jump ship. You can't do that because it's going to cost like millions of dollars. You spent so much already. It's going to cost even more just to move the data. Basically, you're destroying any extra work, any engineering work that you would have done to support the software. It's quite a large undertaking, right? Which is actually probably why Palantir is taking an approach where they're like, oh, we'll connect to all of your data sources. Don't worry about where your data is, right? They're taking an approach that understands that there are current players in the market, and they're going to perform kind of like an abstraction and a layer up, and then potentially, hopefully, by the end of it, when people actually see their potential product, they'll start releasing these options and features that essentially just counter anything that Oracle, Microsoft, or Salesforce, or SAP, or whoever provide. Long story short, half the time these big tech companies right now are even like just making money is because people just don't want to move the data. Forget the engineering side of it, even the business side of it. They don't want the headache of talking to more salespeople, talking to more, like once you have things running, basically if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's kind of like the method that these guys end up taking, right? Least effort, most amount of results kind of thing. You guys see what I'm saying? So that's why to me it's going to be very indicative of how Palantir can move forward, because I want to see how they're able to scale sales and marketing. The product is actually quite mature, and it's not like my way or the highway. It's very open. If your data's with SAP, we'll integrate with SAP, not a problem. You know, just work with us, right? So I think it has potential to go there, but you know, guys, like we're pretty much still early in that phase. This acquisition is a very clear indication that big tech has taken notice, right? And this is a long time ago. This is from 2016. This is like what, right? Actually the same year as Oracle bought NetSuite, right? So most likely they wanted to buy Palantir, but the valuation is too high and they ended up buying NetSuite instead. But I mean, it's a good damn thing too, because if they did acquire them, then I think we would all lost out on a great opportunity that we currently have, especially now with, I think the stock price today was at like 16.50 or something at the time of making this video. But you know, that's where we're at. I think Oracle would have done some good stuff with Palantir if they acquired them, but I wouldn't trust nobody else except Alex Karp and Peter Thiel with the initiative of what they're trying to do here. These guys know exactly where we need to go in terms of you know, like data future. I do support and like their vision. I'm not just going to get spoon-fed stuff. Like, I want to do my own research. Of course, I'm going to disagree with some of the things they say, but I do like the leadership here. I think they're going to move the company forward in a good direction. And, you know, I'm all for it, man. I'm a good thing that they didn't get acquired, right? But Peter Thiel does this often. You see this all the time. This happened with Facebook too, where they sat with, I think, Yahoo, and they talked about acquisitions, and there was like some issue with him and Zuckerberg or something like that. It's anecdotal, of course, but go do your own research, figure that out yourself. But Peter Thiel does this quite often. He always shops the market to see what else is out there and what kind of offers will come in. He's a businessman at the end of the day, so that's fair. The one thing that does get to me though is, you know, Palantir is always fighting FUD, right? It kind of reminds me of Tesla. Maybe not as much, but Tesla-esque in some ways. In this article, like, I'm gonna read you a little clip right here. Okay, in this article, even back here, we're still fighting FUD. Like, watch this. The Palo Alto-based company sells data mining software and services to intelligence and law enforcement agencies, at least as far as we can tell. Like, I'll leave the link in the description. You guys can go check it out yourself. But these guys have been fighting FUD from way back then. They're not selling our data to any intelligence agencies or law enforcement. I mean, maybe with the law enforcement thing, it's the whole ICE thing, right? But even there, they're not exactly working with the department or the direct people that are doing the things that are causing some issues and stir, right? There's a little bit of a difference there, guys. So, you know, I think it's important to look into it. Now, I do believe, you know, if there's something bad going on, if there's some shit on the floor and you're standing next to it, you're gonna stink too, right? I do believe that, but in this case, I don't think it's warranted. So you guys let me know if I'm wrong here, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, I think a lot of these things are going to come out of the woodwork as we kind of progress and Palantir grows. We're going to start hearing about stories how acquisitions may or may not have happened, and it's a very interesting situation. But you know, I did call this in my other video where I was like, Oracle's a big player. The thing of all this is that they finally are now taking notice of what Palantir is and what they can potentially provide to the market. I think the fight's about to start. We're probably going to get maybe 2 more years of runway before these products really start competing with each other full force. And at that point, Palantir's they're not going to be an acquisition stage. They're going to be fight or die stage, and they're going to be up against some really big competition. So the product is fantastic and it's probably in a class of their own, but their competition is also very, very respectable and very commendable, and they have the resources to basically grind you down. They don't have to win, they just have to grind you down. So for those of you that are wondering why aren't big tech just like competing, they are competing. They have taken notice. Now they're just saying, okay, well, because of, you know, all the stuff I mentioned to you before, we're making tons of money already. We don't need to worry about a little up and coming shop that's doing it differently. Let them do it differently. Once they do it differently, if it works, then we'll start throwing all sorts of resources at it. That's my take on it, but I still think Palantir's product will outcompete, and once they create a niche for themselves, people will start filling in that void there. You know, people will actually start adopting the software, and that's what I'm looking for: product adoption and sales and marketing. That's really what I'm waiting for, because the product maturity is very high for Palantir, and they're at a stage where I think it's like they don't have to do much engineering, just tweaking and feature set work. But I think they're still spending a ton of work on R&D, probably for future endeavors and future products and future modules. You know, let's see, guys. Let's see if the salespeople can sell. Bring up the adoption levels, man. Come on, let's go. Let's go. It's pretty low. The stock price is so low right now. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Feel free to like and subscribe if you like the content. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.